ball threats and athletic quarterback. So I might have to scramble drill, just use that. And like I said, they have some deep ball threats.
All right, welcome in. It's Michigan tonight. Thomas Guynes, Dennis Fithian. We are ready to get things underway. Thomas, it is great to see you. How are you?
Hey, I'm well, Dennis. Happy to be here, sir. Hope everything's well on your end.
It is. You know what? It's going to be an exciting weekend, and it's going to set up, if it goes the way I think it's going to go, the way I want it to go, for a really exciting week next week. But I don't want to get ahead of myself or anything. I actually want to look back. You know, Michigan put themselves in this position. We're going to be here in this position talking about Michigan here on Fridays, and I'm excited about that. So first of all, thanks for coming in and deciding to do this. For the people, I want to put up a picture. I have a photo of you back. I could have pulled one off of the video and put it up here, but I have it right here in my files. I didn't get this so long ago. So it was nice down at the game. So it was good. You were handing those out to the kids, and I was
the kids
in line there and grab one.
Yeah, roger that. No, I think you make a great point about let's not overlook Maryland. The Angry Turtles, as I like to call them. Definitely, I consider this to be a trap game coming up just because of the scenario, how it has played out over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we have the importance of the game coming up on November 27th. So we got to take care of the business at hand. Once we get done with that, let's go eat our vegetables, and then we can actually get into the meat and potatoes of what this season's really has been about. Obviously, we are on the precipice of doing something special, something that hasn't been done in almost a decade here at the University of Michigan within the Michigan football program. So it's imperative for us to continue to go about our work in a very methodical fashion. Let's make sure that we are focused to detail, attention, conscious, and making sure that we're getting done what we're supposed to get done. And then we can get into the fun part of things. And, as a former player, it was always fun to play that team from down south because typically there was so much riding on it. Championship, bowl games, and it's just the rivalry, the University of Michigan versus those kids from down south.
Well, that kind of stuff can be on the line again, not too long from right now, like you're talking about, if things go as planned out there in College Park. And we'll talk about the plan in College Park against Maryland at the Shell. I think they call it. We'll get to that. But first, I wanted to go back. Last week's game was a big game. It was a big win. They needed to have it, or else we wouldn't be sitting here talking about tomorrow's game the way we are. And when you think about it, we've had a long time now to think about the win that they had against Penn State, and it ended up being 14-14. It reminded me because of the touchdown and the fourth down conversions, and then the 2-point conversion. It reminded me of the game against Michigan State. And then Michigan, they go 3 and out, they get stripped, they turn the ball over at their own end. Wow, defense did a nice job holding them there to a field goal. But the pressure of that kind of tidal wave of when things look so good, and then they needed the offense and the defense in the last 6 minutes to each step up. And they did. So, but what are you thinking about? It's almost been a week now, going back to State College and thinking about that win over Penn State.
Well, anytime you have the opportunity to go into Happy Valley, it's definitely going to be a difficult time. I was a part of that, 93-94 team where Penn State first came into the Big Ten, and we beat them there, had a historic goal line stand. And, they had a stacked squad then. Happy Valley, the Shoe, obviously going to the western side of the state. These are some of the more difficult places to play within the Big Ten, Camp Randall. So as far as just getting the win, I think we've done a really good job. Had a really good showing this year with our ability to go on the road and pick up those marquee wins. Obviously, we came a little bit short against Sparty. It is what it is. But to be able to dust yourself off, so to speak, keep those goals in front of you, and to still go out there and execute the game plan. Obviously, it wasn't a pretty game. Definitely a little bit too close for my liking. Definitely had to go look at some antacids and some blood pressure medication as I'm watching that game and chasing that with some quality top shelf bourbon. But when I go back and look at that game, I'm uplifted with our sense of perseverance, but I'm also have pause because of the mistakes that we did have, and they're not glaring, but they're mistakes that we've made too often throughout this season. Unable to stop the 4th and 2s or the 2-point conversions, our inability to continue to stay on the field in the red zone and or get touchdowns, or our ineptness almost within the short yardage play of our offense. So there's still some things that still kind of I'm hoping that we correct, and hopefully we get that done this week against the Angry Turtles. Definitely as the team from down south gets ready to come into the big house, they're going to bring their A game. I think we do have the horses to win that game, but we have to be hitting on all cylinders. We can't shoot ourselves in the foot. Silly penalties, not knowing our defensive personnel, missed assignments, lack of detail when it comes to technique, especially up front on the offensive line. So overall, like I said, good win, solid win. Definitely there are a lot of things that we can build upon, but we did come out of Happy Valley happy that we got the W.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is the bottom line always in those games. I wonder when you look back, we talked about a player or a position group. You already mentioned the offensive line. Eric All was huge, making that that the 47-yard touchdown, whatever it was there. Obviously, that was a lightning bolt that the Michigan was able to get to.
Right.
To win that game offensively. But when you think about a player or position group this past week, what's still now you have a few days. So what are you? Who are you identifying, or what group are you looking at? Whether it's that they played outstanding, or one that you want to see take it to the next level over these next 2 weeks.
So definitely, I'm looking at 97 and 55. Our defensive ends have done outstanding work. They have served themselves very well as they look at going to the next level. How has this year's play projected them as far as when the draft comes up? So I think they've done themselves a great service in their level of play, showing their ability to get off the edge, to set the corner post, if you will, to play the run, but obviously as pass rush specialists, where both of their skill set has definitely shined through. I think those two individuals, those two players, have done a hell of a job this season. Obviously, as an offensive lineman, us giving up that sack was kind of sketchy. And when I went back and I was watching it, it wasn't, our guy just got beat. It was more or less just a lack of technique. And on that play right there, almost cost us our right tackle when he got rolled up on when Cade went down. So I want to see continued improvement out of my offensive line, continuing to change the line of scrimmage, continuing to open holes, continuing to give our quarterback a pocket. I believe there was a batted ball, but it wasn't really a batted ball as Cade got ready to release the football.
On that last series there, yeah, or the one that got stripped, the play before that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was a batted ball or somewhere in there. But what ended up happening was it ended up hitting the back of the offensive lineman's helmet. And when I went back and watched it, the offensive line literally got driven six yards deep, collapsing the pocket within the interior 3. So we can't have that. If my tackles are doing their job and running the defensive ends up the field, if we don't get them stifled at the line of scrimmage, quarterback has to have some place to step up into. So, and again, a lot of we've done good things, Dennis. And so I'm not here to be Debbie Downer on the big fellas up front as a former big fella, but that's the thing that frustrates me because I know that we can do it. We're just not doing it in a consistent basis. So if we continue to tighten that up, hopefully we get Blake back. I think that there's definitely such a distinguished, if you will, between the running styles, between him and Hassan. Haskins is a north and south guy, and he runs tough and he runs hard, and I love that. But I don't necessarily see that running back's his natural position, being a converted linebacker. So there are some things within the game that I saw that I think a natural linebacker would have did a better job of when it comes to vision. But, Hassan runs tough, got us some important first downs, especially when, the blocking wasn't necessarily there. He was able to BYOB, be your own blocker. So, definitely salute to that young man right there. And, overall, I give a overall B-, reference a team grade. When I went back and looked at the numbers within the box scores, everything was pretty comparable. Again, Penn State is not a terrible team. They came to play. And again, like I said before, playing in Happy Valley is, the snow cakewalk. So us going in there and getting the W, even if it was not as pretty as we would like for it to have been, definitely still a good win.
Yeah, I'm kind of playing off of where you're going here, because I picked the defensive backs as a position group that stood out, and a lot of their success. I mean, it goes hand in hand. If you're getting a really good rush up front, that's going to help out the guys in the back, and we've seen that. But a couple guys, Vincent Gray, who a lot of people, let's say, jumped on last year, but we're like, hey, they need better play out of number 4. He looked pretty good in this game, and on that when there was 2.5 to go, they were throwing the ball over his way, and he was right in the back pocket of the receivers. And I also think DJ Turner had to step up. He's been in like whether it was a nickel or a 3-man rotation over there, but with Jaimon Green not being available in that game last week, they really needed DJ Turner to step up, and he did. I would also put, Dax Hill and the super senior Brad Hawkins, who got the additional year. You feel pretty good about those guys, I think, when you're a Michigan fan watching it. But a true freshman and Rod Moore, he was not only out there on that big hit on a 3rd down on that final defensive stance against Penn State, and where he lit up in a good technique. You were talking about technique, not to lower his shoulder or hit the neck or head
right
area, that tackle there. I was impressed by that, but this was a guy that didn't even come in for spring, and he's out there contributing. So that's all the more impressive to me when I think about some of those DBs, and then Rod Moore, the true freshman in particular.
And and you're right. There were some glaring plays to me where tight ends seemingly are in this valley of openness within our secondary, and they were able to drop some passes in there. So I think especially with our young guys, the more time they get, the more continuity they're able to develop with their secondary mates. This definitely should be a stronger part of our overall defense as far as the actual play goes of the individuals. Yeah, I think we did a very solid job as far as that goes. I'm more concerned just with the overall implementation of the defensive scheme, because of the fact that there were, several times where I'm just like, how are these guys getting this wide open? And that's happened before in some previous games where, especially with the tight ends, just wide open in the middle of these zones. I'm not a super defensive guy, and especially not in secondary, but something tells me that if I got one guy running a crossing route, I shouldn't have 2 DBs running with him. If I got 2 here, somebody's running wide open somewhere else. So just our ability to see things, make these changes on the fly, having better communication, being able to switch off responsibilities, having that fluidity, if you will, within the secondary. But, like I said, definitely gave us a solid effort.
We've talked about a couple plays already, but let's still going back to last week before we get to Maryland, and then the other game, that's the following week, how they can prepare for that and what you're thinking about. But if you pull the play, both a good one, you've mentioned some of the subpar plays, but a good play, maybe a bad play from last week. Let's both throw a play out there, one that you'll remember or one that you look back at. You already said, you were going back and rewinding and taking a look at some plays. How about a good play from last week? Which one would you identify here?
I definitely think, the strip sacks that we've had were great plays, just great individual effort. There was one particular play with Hutch coming off the end, and when you watch Hutch, and if you understand, as a former kinesiology major, when you understand the biomechanics of how things work within the body and understanding line play both defensively and offensively and how the geometry of it works, Hutch did a really good job when he comes off, coming up with a hard outside step, getting the right tackle to open up his hip and turn his shoulders just ever so slightly. And he comes right back in with a counter move, with a rip move. And because of the secondary, which what I believe, as you alluded to, doing a solid job, making their quarterback hold the ball a little bit longer than what he wanted to, because Hutch has such a great motor. It wasn't a clean beating of the offensive lineman, but it was enough where, as the offensive lineman, the cardinal rule is you never get beat inside. Hutch beat this kid like a drum coming back on an inside move. So with the inside rip coming back in really hard, and as the quarterback started to scramble to his left, Hutch with a great motor comes in for a huge sack. So that to me was one of one of those standout plays, if you will. And also you got to go back to all in that catch. And to me, it was relatively mundane. But when you understand the full circumstances with him playing with that high ankle sprain and him still having enough of the jets, if you will, to get it in for those 47 yards, that to me stood out, showed me a level of testicular fortitude, as I like to say, from that young man, not only in making the catch, but fighting through whatever physical adversities he was going through to lay it on the line and make sure he got into the end zone. There was now the bad play we had. I'm going to put it back on the defense. It was the end of the first quarter. It was 9 or 6 seconds left. And Hutch again comes up with a counter move, comes back inside. Penn State was running quads to the left. There was nobody on the right side. So they had all the eye candy between the backfield and the left, and their left, our defensive right. Hutch comes in from his defensive end position, taking an inside lane. Well, the linebacker gets a little peep happy and gets caught up in the backfield. And so as Hutch is going up inside, and there's counter step movement by the running back comes up into the line of scrimmage. And where does he go? He goes to the right, where Hutch had vacated. And now the linebacker is too far up inside into the LOS, unable to scrape. Our safeties are too deep, and they pick up a first down. I want to say it's 8-9 yard gain on a run that should have probably been at best maybe 3.
You never want to get caught peeping. That's what I'll take out of there. I'll give you 2 plays here. Both of them were in the second quarter. One was Michigan's the first touchdown drive. It was 15 plays, 90 yards, and they get down to the 21-yard line, to the Penn State 21. It's 1st and 10. I'm like, they're just going to run Hassan Haskins. I think I would have done the same thing. Just turn around, give it to 25, just keep pounding it towards the goal line. Instead, Cade McNamara goes back and just throws the perfect pass to Roman Wilson, who he just stuck that ball in there for the touchdown. Big for a number of reasons. One, I think you're breaking tendencies when you throw it on a first down, getting down there by the red zone, although it technically wasn't the red zone. But then also Roman Wilson, here was a guy that got hurt his wrist, missed some games, and then had been coming back, and Andrell Anthony had stepped up in his place. But here was Wilson coming back and reclaiming his spot there as this I'd say emerging star. And so for me, I loved everything about that particular play. Now, and the same thing was the second series. That was the first series of the second quarter. In the second series for Michigan on offense, I'll go to, it ended up being a 4th and 2 and a 4th down attempt. And I knew they were going to Hassan Haskins. They had their, I don't know, so the Buffalo package in there, an extra offensive lineman or anything else. But, when you look at it just from where I'm standing and look back at it, and I think other people just like, you see that there's an overload that's onto the right, and Michigan looked like they ran right into it. Now, I don't know the mechanics of that play. Are you able to audible and say, hey, let's go left, right?
What was really cool, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I remember that play very vividly, and I'm like, why are we going to the right now? What is the audible? Can we at least audible to the other side? Can we check out of this from the run situation? Do we have a pass built into this particular play? So again, as you continue to look at these things progress, we're always surmising or guessing, if you will, based off of what we're seeing, not being in the huddle, not being on the sidelines, not specifically knowing what those calls were. But if I'm looking at it and you're looking at it, then I'm like, the quarterback's got to be looking at it. I'm like, why would we run to an overload side where we're outnumbered and it's not advantageous for us at this particular point? So again, I think we got the first down, but at the same point in time, I'm just like, why would we do that?
Yeah, they didn't on that one. I remember asking this. It's been a while. It's not any of the current offensive staff, but previous offensive staffs and play callers. Like I would say, every time you send a guy in motion, you always go. The play's always going that way. I'm picking that up, and it would be something the same thing like this. They saying, well, they're sitting up there, and maybe in this case, Josh Gaddis, and it was just the second quarter. Sometimes they are setting things up for later in the game, but it was a 4th and 2, so you'd think, man, right, you don't just want to stay with something so that you could play off of it later in the game. You would think that this would be the time that you would try to pick that up. Maybe if it was a first down and it was an overload, you wanted to stay to see, because you wanted to run some kind of bootleg or something off it if you're getting down to the red zone. But that's a 4th down play. Right. In the second quarter, I'm thinking at that point, don't just run right into the teeth of the defense in an overload, even if you're thinking that you're going to play off of it later. But I don't know. Sometimes these guys are a step or two ahead of me.
It sounds good if it works, but I go back to, did you know that we only picked up our first down once we got to the second quarter? We didn't have a first down the whole first quarter. So that's not good, D. And especially, again, don't want to oversimplify, don't want to look past the angry turtles. But obviously, when we are taking on that team from down south and the level of athleticism that they have at their fingertips that they can bring to bear, we have to be able to sustain drives. We have to not have those untimely penalties. We have to secure the football to make sure we're taking care of the football, and that when we get in the red zone, that we're getting it into the end zone. We can't settle for field goals from here on out. We have to be a lot more proficient in our ability to get into the end zone.
Yeah, well, you talking there, and football has changed rapidly over the last couple of years, but I'm just reminded there was an old teammate of yours who I would say, what about the 3 and outs and just running the ball in the first quarter? And he was adamant, like, look, we're tenderizing them. We're coming out there, and by the third quarter and fourth quarter, that's when we're going to be able to exert our will. Maybe you're able to do that on some opponents, maybe even on Maryland tomorrow. I don't know about Penn State. I certainly don't know about Ohio State, but I know that, he was an offensive lineman. He was a center, and, that was the mentality he had. He probably loves this particular team with their idea of, ground and pound, and let's just, keep it on the ground and everything, because then it feels like, he's taking over the game. But I don't know if that mentality stays there or if it works in 2021. The tenderizing.
I think it can, if you are playing with an offensive line that's consistently changing the line of scrimmage. So what has happened, Dennis, over the course of this year, based off of our early success and the teams that we played early, we were throwing up these gaudy rushing numbers, and everybody, we're back, and we're so this and we're so that. And I'm just like, dude, we are supposed to be doing this based off of the caliber of competition in which we're playing. We haven't hung the moon at no particular point. So as the season starts as we start getting into the thick of the season and the competition starts to ratchet it up, if you will, when you go back and start looking at the numbers, we're not putting up those gaudy rushing numbers like we were at the beginning of the season. And so the tenderizing aspect as an offensive lineman, yeah, I want to keep punching you in the mouth, because I'm hoping that as we're winning that war of attrition, when we start getting into, midway through the third quarter and me continually punching you in the mouth, that pass rush becomes a little bit slower. You can see the guys with their hands on their hips. They're looking up at the clock, wondering, are we going to get off the field? And that's when I know I've started to win the mental aspect of the game, that mental chess match, that mano-a-mano that takes place in the trenches that a lot of people don't really see or understand. But when you're able to stand across from your opponent and look them in the eye, and you know what they have for pregame meal because I can smell their breath, then I start to know that I'm starting to take that individual's soul. And that is the beautiful part about playing offensive line. A lot of people don't understand the symphony of violence that takes place right there in those couple of inches that's basically separated by the length of a football between huge men with really determined mentalities. So it's good if we're doing it, but if we're not doing it, then we're going to have to bring a little bit more diversity to our offensive game set.
All right, let's get to the opponent tomorrow. That is Maryland. I don't want to make out Talia Tagovailoa to be Aaron Rodgers, but he is an incredible arm talent, and he moves around and he throws the ball. He'll throw it and try to fit it into the smallest window. He can really spin it. He can throw it downfield. He throws it sidearm, all these different things. He's a gunslinger. And, he's got 20 touchdowns. He's got 10 picks. I went through just the Big Ten East, and, he threw 2 touchdowns against State, but had 1 pick, 1-1 against Penn State, didn't throw any interceptions against Indiana, and then 2 touchdowns, 2 picks against Ohio State. So, I mean, he's putting it up for at times for grabs. Very dangerous, but also he's got a nice tight end. And, they can put some points up there. So if he gets in any kind of rhythm or something, you don't want to get into the fourth quarter with a guy who might feel like he can go out there and be a riverboat gambler and he keeps throwing all of his chips into the middle. At least that's the way I'm looking at it right here. But I think Michigan, because of who you just talked about, their outstanding ends, and then what I was talking about in their secondary, I think this matches up well for U of M. That's how you can stop a guy like Tagovailoa. But what are your thoughts on the Terps tomorrow?
Well, as far as the Angry Turtles go, to your point, I want to make their quarterback as uncomfortable as possible, continue to pressure him, make him get in situations. If he's coming out with that gunslinger mentality, keep slinging it. But we have to take advantage when we get those turnovers, because if he's going to throw it up, let our guys go get it. Now, upon not only just getting the turnover, I need points off the turnovers. There's been several times where our defense has done a really good job as far as getting us the ball, and we haven't done anything with it. So points off of turnovers are going to be huge. And also I'm looking for just consistency within our offensive line. How consistent are we changing the line of scrimmage? And lastly, our run game. Every game this year at some particular point when there was a big rush by our opponent, it has typically came up the middle between the tackles. I'm looking for our linebackers to come downhill fast to fill, but then let's wrap up. Let's not have it a bunch of missed tackles. Let's have a bunch of winged helmets getting to the ball. Let's get guys down on the ground. I don't know where this new thing came from, where you just got guys holding the runner as they're still running and still gaining yards, and you just got guys pawing at the ball. I'm not seeing, if you're going to do that, I got to have guys punching the ball out. We're not just trying to, pull it out. You got to punch that ball. If not, let's get this guy down on the ground and get to the next play, because while we're doing all of this reaching and grabbing, this guy's still picking up yards. So if we're able to do those things, and, like I said, just protect the ball. Let's win the turnover battle. Let's win the time of possession. Let's continue to pound these guys and get home, make the quarterback uncomfortable, make him throw it up for grabs. But when he does, our secondary definitely has to take advantage of that.
All right, I'm going to give you a final score coming up. But our final thing, I asked you to identify as a former offensive lineman. It doesn't have to be an offensive lineman, but a lineman of the week, the Thomas Guynes lineman of the week. You've already mentioned one or two. Who would you pick in the final segment here of Thomas Guynes Lineman of the Week?
I got to stick with the same two guys. Those guys showed up big. They had very integral plays within the game that helped lead to the overall success of the team. And they have continued to show a high level, not just a high level of play, but a high level of consistency throughout the year up until this last game. So I got to go with 97 and 55.
I can't argue with you. I like to, but
yeah, I would like to give it to, one of my fat kids on the other side of the ball. But in my opinion, and I don't ever want to be a homer. We just have not been consistent enough.
Fair enough. And I have a score of 38-20 tomorrow. Thomas, it was great being with you here on Michigan Tonight. We'll do it again.
Definitely a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Love the format. And as always, go blue.
All right. There he is, Thomas Guynes. Thanks for watching.